My Love of Life Energy is a podcast created by Anna Scott. Anna knows that every human being sees life uniquely. In this podcast, she will talk to people and learn from them. These conversations are to shine the brilliance of each human being she speaks to. Join her. After each exploration, you will expand on your insights and see truth and beauty.
Good morning and good afternoon, and welcome to my podcast, My Love of Life Energy. And today I'm having a previous guest on my show, Molly Lynch. And the reason that I'm having her back is that she's no longer a guest, but Molly is becoming my business partner. We're venturing out into the world to start sharing the gene keys together. And today we wanted to share with you what they are, what they do, and then our experience. So with that, Molly, welcome.
Thanks, Anna. It's great to be here. It feels like the time is right. The moment is alive to have this conversation and share what we're launching into.
So, how do you understand the gene keys? What do you see them? They are, and what do you see them as?
Well, as you and I use this language, I call it a language of light. I think it's been called in the whole system of the gene keys conversation, a language of light. So that activation within my heart, when you hear something that feels true and right and something that sparks curiosity, that's kind of what the start of that conversation was for me. So the interest and the depth that language has allowed me to explore my own inner world and life and be more service in the world, to support the awakening is a phenomenal gift.
So when I read Richard Rudd's book, my daughter asked me what the gene keys are because she thought she was beginning to thought it was my Bible, because I'm with them every day.
Yeah.
And I went back and reread the introductory chapter for like the third time. And what I heard was that they're universal language made of 64 genetic archetypes. And I thought, oh, that's what they are. They're related to our DNA, and they give us archetypes so that we can understand what's inside of us in our DNA.
So also in the symbology of the I Ching, I mean, that's kind of the basis, which
is.
Yeah,
how do you understand the I Ching? Because that is what they're based on.
Well, another sort of language in a way. And to me also, I think it would be known as an oracle, some way to have the invisible present itself in sort of a symbolic language then to learn and know and be open to wisdom. What about you?
I understand the I Ching was a way, I think what you just said, it's the way to understand the invisible of the world, of the universe, and understand in a way as a guide, and to be able to understand what is invisible within life, and see it in a pattern.
Yeah. And in this, in the hologenetic profile, in the visual, there is a symbology there. It does something it's not left brain, it's very right brain and fluid, where it opens up to those other sort of mysteries through symbolism.
So I'm curious, how did you come across the gene keys?
Well, I was at Rancho La Puerta in Tecate, Mexico. It's a beautiful resort down there. And I met Anne Van de Water, who teaches all various things down at Rancho La Puerta. And she's just a mystic wonder. And she's wonderful. And we were having a conversation, we were just hanging out. And she asked me my birth, like the dates and everything. And I gave it. So she just started talking about gene keys and what my spheres were, and human design and the whole bit, which is the kind of the pre-gene key. It's a human design. Anyway, so she was my introductory to that. I was like fascinated in her description. I was like, ooh, this resonates so deeply. Like, what is this? And that kind of sparked the light, as it were.
And what made you go deeper in it?
I think when you and I connected into it and kind of found that common language that we do share in that way, I think that's when it was like, oh, okay, it's on.
Yeah, so I was a little pissed that I wasn't the one who introduced you to. I was sure that it was me.
You wanted to win. You
I
want to be
did. I wanted to be the one.
you want to be the first one. So what about you? How did you find?
The Gene Keys came to me through a good friend of mine, Julie Stewart, who I interviewed on this podcast, and she had been talking about it for a couple months, and I had been going through and doing some Bufo journeys, which is a five. I always forget it, and I did a whole podcast series on it. But I wanted to know. There were two things. One is I wanted to know my purpose, and I was praying for that. But what I found is that I was doing all these powerful hallucinogenics, and then I would come back to just being Anna, and nothing changed. And one day I was on a heart medicine, which is a type of medicine, and then I began to listen to the Gene Keys. And when I was listening to it, I was like, holy moly, this stuff is true. I could feel the truth of it in my being. And that was September of 2022. And as you know, I've been geeked out on it.
Yeah, total geek.
Like I can't get enough of it.
Right. Yeah, such a beautiful way in through a friend.
Yeah.
And just that experience you're talking about, listening to it, there's an audio quality to this, that to hear Richard Rudd, who's how would you call him? How would you call him? The creator, or?
Well, he's the one, he calls this material a prophecy.
Right.
And he was the one who received the prophecy.
Right. And I was kind of just speaking to the audible part of it, when he's using his voice and language, it's really, there is a transmission feeling. So as we know, it affects us inside of our actual being, because there's that resonance, there's a frequency of light that is so powerful, or the sound of the story is so powerful, and it kind of hits the cells in some way and changes things. Alchemy of it.
Well, he talks about that. These Gene Keys, he said it was really beautiful, is that they are basically a frequency of light that sends a message to our DNA that if we I want to feel into this, if I keep that frequency on my DNA, it's going to, and use this language, that it will change the frequency of my DNA. It will upgrade it. It will unlock a higher, a different intelligence.
Yes, the evolutionary quality of the prophecy of that.
Yeah. So I'm curious, why do you love it? Like, what has it done for you?
Well, it's just like anything else. Like, you love what you love. I love a redwood tree, deeply. I love my wife deeply, and my people. And I just feel like, and then here comes this, it's like a template of truth. Everybody has a book, there's something that resonates, but this, to me, because it's a living wisdom as well, that there are things that open up and are available to sort of dimensionally. I know I sound like a woo-woo crazy, but I don't care, because it's almost like this is some stuff that, and I've been on a path for a long time, probably since I came out of my mother. I was doing some wild stuff, but this is something that's like so mind-blowing to me. But also there's this simplicity that I can't escape. And to me, what I'm finding is that I love what is more simple and essential. So it feels that way to me, and I'm just drawn to it. And then in the conversation and creating my life's work through the purpose, in my purpose, and in collaboration, is super powerful to me. So it also led me to this moment.
It is so impacted my life. I've been, like you, a lifelong learner. Yeah. And I came across a beautiful understanding by Sydney Banks, the 3 principles, which I've shared with you. And I still believe in Richard Rudd. It's in the 55th Gene Key. The 55th Gene Key, to me, is Sid Banks' work, that we're only experiencing our thinking. But what I couldn't see were all my shadows. And it's like, I feel like somebody gave me a flashlight, and shadows are where I get stuck in my thinking, and the kind of thinking that I have. Right. That I couldn't see, that was so habitual.
And this is foundational Gene Keys language. You want to share maybe just a little bit about each one of those
Oh yeah.
in the context of the Gene Keys?
So Richard Rudd saw that we have a shadow, a gift, and a city. And the shadow it's basically that human beings are part of life, and there's an intelligence that's innate in every human being. And in that intelligence, in this DNA is what's called shadow, and it's basically our fear pattern. It's where the human body became so afraid and gets locked in that pattern. But when we let go of the fear, we go into what's the gift. And the gift is when I'm not afraid, what becomes. So for example, I just did a blog on someone who had, it's the 9th G key. It goes from inertia to determination to invincibility. And this young woman always had struggles with getting things done. And that's the inertia.
Right.
Because she would overthink it so much. And what it's innate in her, like she's supposed to be that way. There's nothing wrong with her. That was part of the plan. But the gift is that if she takes the first step, that energy goes into determination.
Right.
But it's fueled by the city, which is the purest form of energy, because we are all from this pure energy. And that's what Sid Banks said. We are pure energy. And it fuels together. And so she became this determined machine. She could just get locked off.
Right.
So we make people wrong for the things are shadows rather than understanding, oh no, that's part of your humanity. There's nothing wrong.
Yeah. Right.
There's nothing to fix.
Right. And there's so much, it's beautiful. And there's so much liberation, and to recognize that, oh, that is a part of me. It's not something. And so then when we know that we don't have to be separate from that part of ourselves, that's where the light can come in. That's where the light can come in. That's what you're saying essentially, is the gift unlocks that, the awareness of that, because the gift is also knowing that that's truth.
Yeah. And it's not trying to, the 25th gene key, which is from constriction to allowing, I think that's acceptance, to universal love.
Okay. You're the master.
I know I'm the master gene keyer. I've taken
you
upon
won
me
that. You won that one.
But what it is that innate in every human being is when we get scared, we constrict.
Yes.
When we're afraid, we constrict. There's nothing wrong. And we were supposed to be scared.
Yes.
But what happens is when we get scared is we overthink it.
Right.
We got scared of being scared.
And then we lock it down. So there's nothing truly to fear but fear itself. That's a liberating thought. And we know somebody famous said that, but in the context of the keys, if we look at it, it's like we were born having fear for a reason on some level. And we were talking about that the other day, like the nuance and subtlety of like our intention, and then how do we, like, through our belief system, either have something look like it's not good, and something. So there's the judgment with the separation. I could go on forever, but to bring that wholeness and unity back in, it's exciting. And that's where I know that you and I are merging into that, helping people, to supporting people, let's say, maybe even guiding a little bit on that.
Yeah, it's kind of, I'm so curious. So why, we've done one event together, one day.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, why do you want to bring this work into the world? What's your why?
Well, my why is, the more that I kind of am with this, like listening to, before we sat down, listening to the 55th, I was just drawn to it. That's the other thing. It's like, ooh, there's something to like just touch in with this wisdom. But really listening to the shadow of that one being victimization. And to me right now, to bring the frequency up into the freedom, come out of victim mentality, victimhood, victim energetic, is going to free us up so much more peace on this planet, so much more love, because we are taking responsibility for the energy that we are using and how we're using it.
So can I clarify
Yeah.
just a couple things? So the 55th gene key is a linchpin, one of the linchpins of the whole 64 gene keys, and it's the 22nd and the 55th.
Right.
And the 55th, the shadow is victimization, and then it goes to this gift of freedom, and the city is freedom.
Right. Yeah. It's the only
And
one there's those.
what you're pointing to is that what we're waking up to is the only thing we're victim to is our own thinking.
That's it. Sid Banks.
That's Sid Banks. And Sid Banks would say that we are experiencing what we're feeling is our own thinking. We look outside for the reason, but really it's our own thinking.
And all the prophets have said that.
Mm-hmm.
Really. Like if we really boil it down, there's the energy of like that.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
And it's what we perceive.
Yeah. That's it.
So I want to share this because
Yeah.
I just see that human beings, like Richard Rudd talks about there's all this brilliance in human beings, and it's just the right key to unlock it.
Mm-hmm.
And since I've been playing with the material religiously for the last year and 2 months, I've watched how much more freedom I've had. I've watched the amount of fear. I used to live in so much fear.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it had me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And fear of money was where it went. It always looked like money was the one where I wasn't going to survive.
Yeah.
And I've watched the amount of peace that I live in day to day, and how much I get to share and try new things because of this understanding. I thought, wow, wouldn't it be fun to have more people who understood this and to play with?
Yes. And literally through those awarenesses and perceptions to kind of create really beautifully things that are in the heart, in the calling.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what the word that keeps coming up when you like play, you're just saying play, and it's like, whoa, that's a powerful thing. That energy is so powerful because there's joy in it, and the gene keys are really fun because they can be really trippy and wild things start happening. In my experience.
Well, I know so Molly and I have gone through 2 different versions of going through every gene key together. One is individually, and then what they call as programming partners, and we'll discuss that later.
Yeah.
And you would be studying a gene key, or we'd be playing or kind of tossing around. Yeah. And then whatever we were working on, you go, holy cow.
Yeah.
You're not going to believe what happened.
Yeah.
Do you remember those?
I remember them distinctly because it was so you can see it's literal manifestation of the key, whether it has to do with purpose or love or relationship or any of it. There's always something being outpictured and to become aware of. Like this morning I had a mantra. I was saying, I need a miracle. I'd like a miracle now. And it was on this subject I really needed. I've just dropped it into the bucket. And then something opened up and I came back to this information and I read it and I saw something that was not there before, which completely liberated the whole thing. It was like my miracle. But what I've also been working on is abundance and prosperity, and it changed it kind of. So I was like noticing the correlation. And I really believe, like in service to the whole, that that centering down into the heart, that's going to be our connecting point in all of it.
Well, what I've learned from Sid Banks and what all the mystics say that we are pure love, that inside of us is really this light and love. Mm-hmm. And the gene key shows the intelligence that basically plasters over it and how it works. Mm-hmm. But when we're in love, it's so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm in love, when I feel it,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
and magic happens.
And it's what we all kind of want, I believe, like peace, world peace. We want peace within our lives, and for that love to be easy and free, and feel like it's changing everything, because it is.
Well, what's so beautiful is that, because I know peace is in your profile.
Yes.
It's your
My purpose.
your purpose.
What's your purpose?
My purpose is honor.
That's right.
And but what's so beautiful about it is there's nothing you have to do to get peace.
Mm-hmm.
You are that.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in conflict,
Mm-hmm.
the peace is right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you showed me that yesterday.
I did.
Because we were
What
talking
happened?
about like how are we benefiting from any given circumstance? And you asked me, how do you benefit in conflict? And I said, oh, I get to be righteous or power. And then it was like, oh no. You said no. Well, do you feel peace in that? And it was like it hooked me into the city. So it's that kind of beautiful, like seeing it as a sphere, and it woke something and shifted something in me. I felt it shift me, the vibration of my energy. It's like, okay, now I don't have to be in conflict. I can just be in peace.
Oh.
Right.
And what's so beautiful, yes, and what's so beautiful is you didn't take any classes.
Oh.
You didn't meditate 10 hours to get it.
Yeah.
That's what I love about the gene keys is it's showing us what's innate in us.
That's right. It's lighting it up, or we're remembering it.
We're remembering what's different pathways, different ways. The gene keys offer, I'm going to go over this and then we'll talk about perhaps what we're going to do.
Yeah.
The gene keys offer 3 sequences. It's called the first sequence is the activation sequence, which is really your gifts, what you're here to give to life. And there's 4 of them. And it's a beautiful way to really begin to understand and dip your toes into the whole gene keys. And then it goes into the Venus sequence. It's how you do relationships. Mm-hmm. And what I've learned is that if you want to find your shadows, get into a relationship. But it walks you through how you do relationships. And then there's the prosperities. How do you bring your gifts to the world? And Molly and I did a 1 day on purpose. And I believe what we're going to be creating and look forward to is walking people and introducing them to the whole activation sequence and getting people familiar with how to use this material, what it looks like, and watch the benefit of it.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
I'm looking forward to it. And I think activation is really the foundation, and then how they interlock with the programming partners, and there's so much there. It's the dive in, starting with life's work, and that's beautiful.
Yeah. I'm just going to say a little bit about life's work. Or the programming partners. So in the evolution sequence, they have what's called programming partners, and programming partners are 2 gene keys that provide a biofeedback loop and work in harmony. And at the shadow frequency, when you have 2 shadows working together, it's like your kryptonite. It's what just drags me down. I struggle and I get provoked, like they go hand in hand. But on the flip side is that because I understand this, is that when I have dynamism and perseverance, because I know those 2 work together. If I take a laugh and if I breathe and have a laugh, I'm unbelievable in life. But that's what a programming partner is. It's learning how to use this intelligence. It's like I finally feel like I have somebody wrote me a manual of how to use me.
Yeah.
How to work me.
That's a great way to say it. Yeah. It's so
I'm like, I do this and this is what works.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Totally makes sense to me. I'm sure it makes
Mm.
sense to everybody else too.
So, and why I'm so thrilled to partner with Molly on this is that Molly is an energy savant. She has the 13th gene key in her profile, which is the programming partner of number 6, if I'm correct. Is that
That's
correct?
correct.
The empathy. So Molly is a listener like no other. Molly can listen to the energy. And that's the thing, is these are light waves or energy waves, and she can feel what's really going on. It's like Molly steps in. It's like I feel like Molly's stepping into the circle of the energy and goes, oh yeah, it's this feeling.
Mm,
The truth of it.
mm.
It's just beautiful.
Now I get to say mine about you.
You can do whatever you want.
My favorite part, and why I want to work with you around these keys, is that you're intuitive, your precise intuitive knowing of these is so powerful to witness. It's like you have the download. I mean, it's there. Did you ever see The Matrix when they plug in and go into like learn like Taekwondo? Remember Neo?
Uh-uh.
No, you didn't see The Matrix. Oh,
Uh-uh.
so they plug in, they get the download of how to do Taekwondo, and then he's like the master martial artist guy. So I feel like you were sort of like that, is like in The Matrix, like plugged you and downloaded the gene keys, because the way that you use them and know them so beautifully, it's like you understand them in a way that, I mean, I don't know many people that are doing this, but there are thousands and thousands of people that are. But I just think like you know what you're talking about here. Like you know it so well. And so to me, it's like aligning with that in the way that there's sort of like the yin and yang of how we interpret and share. Like you have it dialed sort of in this way. You have maybe the involution, I have the evolution, you know, like the, you know, those
Yes.
flow. So I think it's perfect and it's
Perfect.
inspiring. So thank you.
Well, it's so much fun. The best part is,
That's the only part I want, is the fun part.
I know that's what we do together. So
Yeah.
with that, I want to thank you. Molly's information will be up on the website, soulconsole.net.
Yeah.
Yep. And that will be up there. But look for us in coming soon for us to offer programs and things together to learn and share about this, because
Yeah.
the best thing since sliced bread.
Best is yet to come, and we'll be doing online and in-person retreats. So just I
Yeah.
want to add that in, that it's in person now too. It's
Cool.
great. Yeah. Thanks so much, Anna.